And welcome back. We're glad you are still with us. The hashtag is NewsGang. Now, one of the other measures that was announced by the president, and it seems many other members of the executive, both at national, county level, the National Assembly, have emulated, is that of pay cuts. So I want us to listen to two persons in that. The leaders or speakers of both houses of parliament announcing that they too are taking a pay cut.
We are going to take a salary cut of 30% of our salary for the next 3 months until the situation improves. But for members of the National Assembly and members of the Senate, consultations are also going on, and in due course we'll also be telling the country on measures that will be taken both as individual members of the National Assembly and Senate and as an institution of Parliament on how we can also support this process.
The history of this country also doesn't reflect very well when it comes to such decisions. But it is my expectation, as we sat with my brother, we also said we hope that the National Treasury will be coming up with a mechanism of where those resources are going to be channeled to.
Governors and deputy governors, 30%. County executive committee members, 20%. Chief officers and job group S, 15%. We also call upon the county assemblies to follow suit and agree on a figure, as this is for the benefit of our people.
Indeed, and it's pay cuts everywhere. I mean, the president is now taking, what, 20% of what he used to. But like Speaker Muturi said, we've heard this before. I remember covering the wage bill conference in 2015. The president announced that he and his deputy were taking a 20% pay cut. I then had an interview with C.S. Rotich later and asked, where is this money? He said it's in some account somewhere, and said, so how sure are we? Where is the money going to? And yet, Joe, here we are again. Pay cuts.
Yeah, I think what is needed in this kind of
voluntary pay cuts.
It has to be voluntary anyway.
Yeah, and so I don't know whether the president now called these guys and said, guess what, we are taking a pay cut, or whether he had a meeting, I don't know. But that's besides the point. I think for me what's critical is the whole question of transparency when it comes to this sort of thing. Because when someone comes and says, I will take a 30% pay cut, it sounds good. It's a great soundbite, and we'll have it as the top of our bulletin and that sort of thing. But what happens after that? How do we know for sure that this money has actually been deducted from their salaries, and where exactly is it going? So is there someone who's going to come after some while and tell us, so of all these pay cuts that we were talking about, so the president's 80% and his deputies 80% and the 30% for CSS and all of these things, all the way now to the counties, is there anyone who's going to come and tell us all this money amounted to this much per month, and therefore after 3 months or whatever number of months it has come to this, and this is how it has been used. It went to this and that account, and it has been used for ABCD. I think that would be more useful, because the truth of the matter is it's really not going to be a lot of money if you think about it, but it's a good gesture, there's no doubt about it. And so what we need to see is that transparency, because it sets a precedent. Like Yvonne was saying, whoever told us the 20% cut that the president and his deputy took some time ago, what happened to it? So the 80% now, is it 80% of the total pay? Is it 80% of the total pay minus the 20%? We actually have no idea.
80% of the
80% of the 80% that was left after the 20% went. But we don't know where
the 100% in the last few years.
So we don't know where the 20 went. We don't know where the 80 is going to go. I think that is what is going to bring some peace of mind, that yes, this is a well-intentioned thing, and actually the money has gone to where it was supposed to go.
See, two things. I did that story, and that's why you see my interest in it. I was looking at those two positions only, for governors and for the two speakers. I didn't even go into the details about the CECs and chief officers and everybody else, even MCAs. Let's focus on the speakers and the governors. First of all, what amount of money is being deducted in terms of that pay cut. It's basic salary, that's what they're saying.
Which is gross.
Minus allowances and all those things?
Our public officers make more money in allowances than in basic pay. So it's a good thing to give. I mean, because it's giving, it's good to give, and we cannot dictate to them how much they'll give. But you see, most of the scenarios that we find ourselves in as a country will not be dealt with through tokenism. They will be dealt with through structures, so that everybody will earn what they earn, but the government will still do its work, and the structures will be working such that even without relying on their sufficiently philanthropic attitude, we will still survive. Look, if the basic pay of a speaker of the National Assembly and the Senate is about 900,000 to about 1.3 million, I computed the figures for Muturi and Lusaka, the two speakers. In those 3 months, they'll give into that kitty, the yet to be established coronavirus kitty, about 1.8 million. The governors, if all of them comply, if they were consulted, if they were to contribute, their pay is about 600,000. They will give us about 9 million shillings per month. So that's good amount of money, but we must also be told what this money will do.
Exactly.
Will it be taken to Mbagathi?
Exactly.
Will it be taken to
will it buy more masks?
More masks? Will it be
ventilators?
Will it facilitate the testing of Kenyans?
Or even training of medical personnel.
Yeah. What will this money be used for?
Contracts
yes, and that's a good question. I mean, Linus, when we were talking about this earlier, you did talk about the perks and the fact that, just to reiterate what Francis was saying, most of them live off their perks.
Absolutely. The elephant in the room is not really the salaries, but first of all, the institutional budget that runs the Parliamentary Service Commission. They needed to have actually come up with steps that will give substantive amounts of money back to Treasury for this kind of work. It's not going to come off the salaries, it's going to come off the perks. For example, what are the events that the Parliamentary Service Commission has listed for the year? Conferences are affected. Can you give that money back to Treasury? How about travel? Are you going to give that money back to Treasury as well? Because year in, year out, whenever we have a situation like this, politicians or leaders tend to try and give us their kind side, which is welcome.
Even MP Babu Owino is giving away 50% of his salary.
I'll skip that. But basically, it doesn't come out of salaries. And the president as well and the deputy president look at the operations of Office of the President.
Yep.
It's one of the most costly offices in
spent so much on travel this year alone.
Yes, travel, even basic movement. If it travels to Mombasa, how much do we actually spend when he's doing that? And just an aside, I noticed the two speakers of the Houses of Parliament came and offered a salary cut.
Yep.
You know what the US Senate did? It passed a 2 trillion emergency bill.
Absolutely.
To fund the government on this emergency situation.
And that's a good place to then ask, where has Parliament been?
Exactly.
Before you go to that, I'm actually very concerned about the optics, because there seems to be this explosion of casual wear. I know people are working from home, but you have two speakers of the...
Buy Kenya, Build Kenya.
Buy Kenya, Build Kenya. If I remember very well, it was supposed to be for Friday. But now, this is the casual look of our leadership. You know, that casual look also conveys a casual approach to things. So it's not nice to be seeing leaders on a working day, from a working base, talking to you in those vitenges,
but just authorize. Nitakuja na kitenge. Nimeshona kitenge.
But I think one thing that I'm seeing on social media about this pay cut thing, is that Kenyans are very skeptical. Most of them are saying, are we sure this money will be given? Exactly what you're saying, Joe, about transparency. Some were saying, oh, they'll give with the right and steal with the left, because that's the culture in this country, that pesa zinaibiwa, corruption is practically messed messed up a lot of people's lives. And I think I understand their skepticism because of past things that have happened. Yeah, we've had, pesa zinatolewa, but ziko wapi? Where are they going? Are they really going to help people? Yeah. Because listening to what the doctors are saying and those in the front line, those who are actually supposed to be taking care of the people who have this virus, do they have the right equipment? Do they have the right training? Do they have the mask? Do they have the protective gear? Do we have what it takes to be able to handle this if it becomes as we are hoping it doesn't? And of course, Yvonne, umeanza kuuliza hawa bunge wako wapi. When you look all over the world, parliaments are still working.
In session.
Yeah, they're in session, so that they can actually pass these bills and pass these packages that are going to help at least ease people's burden because of the coronavirus pandemic. But wabunge wetu, okay, I know Gashu utasema they were supposed to actually go on recess on 19th, just so that they did it 2 days before. But did they panic? Walishtuka, wakasema, ati wanaogopa kwamba.
Yeah, but maybe they could have extended the term, and that's the thing we're talking about now. We're seeing what's happening in the US with the Senate passing the stimulus package, but also the important role that Parliament plays in terms of oversight, right? So all of these monies that we're talking about, where are they going to go? Parliament would have played a very key role in that. And I saw the Speaker, Justin Muturi, saying, well, there needs to be a mechanism to check that these monies are actually going to the right place. That would have been the role that Parliament would have played, right, Joe?
And Parliament actually is going to be very important in implementing some of the proposals, because what the president did, all those tax measures and whatever, those are things that he cannot decree from State House. There's a parliamentary process that has to actually effect them by amending the current Finance Act that we are going on with. So there's no way, for instance, that you're going to tamper with how much pay as you earn that is there until you actually put it in law. And Parliament is going to be instrumental in all of these things. And that is why one would have imagined. I mean, yesterday I was watching... is
that to say, Joe, the deduction will not have been effected at the end of this month?
No, it can't be.
But even when they say effective 1st of April, then I think it takes effect on your April salary.
That means 1st of April just means that it is the salary that you have earned from 1st of April to the end of April, month, which you paid at the end of the month.
Right.
But yesterday I was watching Boris Johnson answering serious questions. The PM's question time is still going on right now, and he was answering all manner of questions that people had about how the UK is handling the COVID-19 pandemic. And that is what parliaments do. You are in the front line. I mean, they would have probably thought about safety measures, how to make sure that they can still transact their business.
Even speaking for the vulnerable, like, what are we doing to help them so that they can practice social distancing and staying at home away from work? Who is speaking
for the people I know they've been saying, the chamber is not that big and there are so many and everything. But when is the last time you actually saw that chamber full? I mean,
there you go.
I mean, let's
even when we need them for 2/3 to pass.
You would never find it. So
they actually do practice social distancing
even
on a very regular basis, even without
the assurance that our representatives are out there trying to figure out ways in which we can deal with this thing, trying to facilitate whatever other measures the government, the executive might come up with. I personally think that even the impression created to the voter
you're on your own.
But this is what needs to happen. If I can just come in very quickly, this is what needs to happen. What needs to happen is for institutional growth to happen in the National Assembly and the Senate. They need to start seeing themselves as the alternative source of leadership and solutions to this country. Because right now, it's a hard mentality. Everybody's listening to what State House is going to say. Or if the president takes a pay cut, then we take a pay cut. If he says we do this, then we'll do that. This is not leadership, not in the sense that the Constitution envisioned. For countries that have put these institutions to use, you will find that Senate can be a source of leadership during a national crisis.
Absolutely.
The National Assembly can be a source of leadership during a national crisis. The members of the leadership of both houses of parliament need to stand up. I don't know how long they'll take to transition and realize that they can actually help the executive when it comes to facing the challenges that the country's
and to also look out for the people that they represent and, like you said, to stand up. So when do they return?
Well, first of all, according to the parliamentary calendar, members of the National Assembly were to take a break from the 19th, but they took it on the 17th. However, that does not in any way mean that they could not have sought an extension of their term to deal with the current situation.
Who cares about a calendar? We are in extraordinary times.
Precisely.
I mean, you know,
precisely.
Really.
The Senate, equivalent to the curfew, I think.
Yeah, the Senate took a shorter recess, so they're supposed to come back on Tuesday. But now, from what the Speaker of the Senate was saying, Ken Lusaka, is that they will meet on Tuesday, but they will be meeting once every week. Remember,
it's better than not meeting. I mean, for me, even if they decided they'll meet twice or whatever.
You see, the kind of things that we are dealing with are on a daily basis. Maybe daily vigilance of what the national government is doing, what the county governments are doing. The quorum for the Senate is 15 senators only out of 67. The quorum for the National Assembly is 50 members only out of 349. So, well, the House, the chambers in the National Assembly are designed to sit about 350 members. And so when you talk about the one-voter rule, they may not all be there. But when is the last time we had 200 members in the National Assembly? We rarely have enough numbers. In any case, sometimes we've had quorum hitches.
Hold that thought just a little bit. As Jamila would say, mbona tunaandika na mate na wino upo. Let's listen to Muturi on actually why they are not in session. He talks about why they took precautions. Listen.
We had to take precautions so that we would be sure rather than sorry. So it was, I cannot say that it was premature. Neither can I say the same even for the Senate, because we had to go and allow everybody sufficient time to stay at home, practice the various measures which had been recommended by the Ministry of Health. Everybody was in panic, but now we've had sufficient time to reflect on what needs to be done, and I'm happy to announce that the staff of Parliament have done a commendable job and put in place mechanisms of fumigating most of the places, the two chambers, all the committee rooms, so that at least everybody, whenever we are required to be back, everybody will feel safe and secure in the knowledge that no infections could come by their way while sitting either in the chamber or in committee.
Everybody was in panic, including the legislators.
Yes, I will not get into that panic story, but there's a gentleman, his name is Vincent Ongore. So he says, this whole issue of pay cut should be approached from the point of view of the budget. Let the departments look at non-essential expenditure and all the activities that have been ditched due to the virus and rechannel all that money back to the treasury. Such an approach, he says, would remove discretion and whimsical decisions by the executive and other senior leaders of our country.
Huyo jamaa pewe sanitizer mbili kwa bili yangu.
And a gentleman called Prosperous, I'm sorry, Joe, says that if COVID-19 had arrived during the 2022 political campaigns, every home would have been provided with a free customized pack containing hand sanitizers, soap, thermometers, and masks, and politicians knocking doors to know how you feel.
But wasn't there a picture
one more comment here.
They branded them that, though.
Lady.
They branded them with their names.
They branded them, yeah. I saw one sanitizer which was branded by somebody who has an aspirant.
Can I just read another related message here? Gakuo says, can't we just ask our leaders to keep their salaries and just stop stealing public funds? We put money on the wrong priorities. We have built good roads and expensive railway and other fancy projects, but we forgot about the basics: food, security, healthcare, sanitation, and water. Basics.
Absolutely. Wow. Basics is what we need to be dealing with. I don't know if you have time to just run very quickly through, the people and their response to all of these measures. I mean, we've heard CS Mutahi Kagwe. Let's listen to him now. He talks about Indiscipline, right? Mutahi Kagwe on Indiscipline, talking about Kenyans' failures to adhere to the instructions and the directives. And then we can talk about how Kenyans are coping with the government's measures.
We are suffering from cases of indiscipline. And Kenyans are exhibiting a very indisciplined behavior. And this is going to cost us.
Okay, I have constantly talked about the communication has been great, but I've always felt there's a sense in which it has never been contextualized. And to some degree, maybe some of these speak about, when we talk about social distancing, it's all fine. I mean, our studios are based in the Kilimani area. I mean, there's a lot of people in this part of town that can practice social distancing easy. Many people have, a house which is a master bedroom, so you can easily put someone in there, with a toilet and everything, and they'd be okay. Is it indiscipline or is it also desperation? I don't know, Joe. What is it?
I think it's a little bit of both, Yvonne. There are places where it is easily possible to do it and people are actually not doing it. Yeah. For instance, in supermarkets, we've seen pictures of different places, and I have to commend a supermarket. I saw some pictures from.
We actually have some of those pictures.
Narok is on top of
But we have to put Narok. Okay.
So
let's have some of those.
Where are you jumping in conclusions?
And I have seen certain supermarkets in different parts of this country that are not doing that. I mean, that's not difficult to do, and it is not difficult to stand in that box. You understand? So there's nothing desperate about that. You
just actually jump over several boxes.
Yeah, and go to the next, as long as there is that distance that you're keeping. So yes, there's a dimension of it that is really people just being indisciplined. There are obviously places, for instance, like Gikomba, as long as it's functioning, or places where people go to buy groceries in markets and open markets that we see every day here. I mean, it's very difficult to social distance when you're buying nyanya or tomatoes from somebody. I mean, like, you have to feel it and see whether it's rotten or it's fine and whatever. It's very difficult. So we have to contend with the difficulties, and I think what the health officials should be grappling with, how do we adapt those things to fit into the situations we find ourselves in, because not everybody is able to swipe a card or is able to go to a petrol station and not speak to someone and do everything for themselves. There are all these things that certain people in our society can do, others don't have that luxury.
Yvonne, someone is talking about what was the work of the census when it was done. The government, you know how many people you have.
Huduma number, how many are employed, how many are self-employed, how many don't have jobs. So we have all this data, but are we using it to be able to find out actually how do we implement any measures that we want to implement to be able to cushion people from the effects of the coronavirus? Because if you have the numbers, then it should be easy for you to implement. Yes, you may not have all the money in the world, but we should be able to make decisions that would help people. Because ultimately, if we say that things as they are now, there's some semblance of normalcy right now. People are actually able to go and do their jobs and be able to feed their families. But what if things change? So what happens going forward? You'll have this huge number of people who are unable to support themselves. And then, of course, there's also say now maybe crime rates will go up. Yeah, and then you may, now you're not safe in your own house. You're worried about your family. Because someone somewhere is struggling to be able to feed theirs, and they're desperate enough to actually go and commit a crime to be able to do it. What does social distancing mean for residents of Mukuru, of Kibra, and a number of other places where? What does it mean for them? What does stay at home?
It could mean something
for them.
Social distancing in Mukuru and Korogosho slums could actually mean moving out of the neighborhood they live in, because it's so cramped. And we've seen reports coming out of India where the 21-day lockdown is already in progress. They are finding it very difficult to maintain that social distance in slum areas because it's simply impossible. People mingle, they share alleys and all that.
They share facilities like toilets,
they share facilities.
And bathrooms.
It's something you can't achieve. But back to the question that you raised earlier on the issue of discipline. I think Mutahi Kagwe has a point, but as part of government, they also need to be inward looking in as far as this question of discipline is concerned. Discipline works if it is enforced. Without enforcement in Kenya, discipline doesn't work. We all, and I repeat this story tonight of the crackdown. When John Michuki was Minister for Transport, he physically had to go to the road and basically ensure that people are wearing safety belts. And he brought the rule on 14-seater matatus. but he had to physically follow that up. The problem in this country is we do not even follow the law. People have learned how to dodge the law at all times. And so for every action that is announced, people will always find a way
of circumventing
it.
Yeah, you're right. Even think about the alcohol blow. There are WhatsApp groups about, where's
the they'll alert you.
Yes.
Don't cross. Use the other route.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
Unless we now punish even simple things like, I know the previous transport minister was talking about wearing helmets for motorbikes. How many helmets do you see in this town? Try the same in Rwanda. In Rwanda, even the passenger has to wear a helmet. So it is our national attitude, and neither government or the public can take itself out of this because they are to blame for that.
Absolutely, and it doesn't help.
Yeah.
The indiscipline doesn't help when we see it being done at the highest levels.
Absolutely.
When we see people who should know better, not self-quarantining. We're talking about people who are educated, people who are exposed, people who have traveled. How then do we expect common Wananchi, Wanjiko, Njoki, and Nafula to do this when they see people at a higher level basically walking around at funerals saying, yeah, wamesema niko na corona, but
You see, indiscipline and disorder are relatives. And if you don't care about basic things, then you are indisciplined, so to say.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter at what level you are in. Because, if we are indisciplined in how we manage public resources, then you will also not expect a lot of discipline from ordinary citizens when you tell them do this and do that. So I think we should exercise discipline at all times, in all ways, from top to bottom. If you have a deputy governor who defies self-quarantine rules, then that is indiscipline. So what do you expect that person, that villager from Kilifi? If you have our priest, Father Richard Odor, moving from Italy, going to Siaya, and was supposed to be on self-quarantine and doesn't seem to care, then that is also indiscipline. So I think let's enforce discipline by everybody, so that even that person at the very local level does not find it difficult to be disciplined, because they can see even at the very top level this discipline.
Yeah,
and absolutely. I think discipline ni nidhamu kwa Kiswahili, and I think we need to follow nidhamu pia sisi and start winding up. It's time for our final word.
Nidhamu ya roba.
Ya roba, amesema.
Deep state.
And today we start with Joe's angle.